Long before skyscrapers rose over Indian cities, before borders hardened and calendars standardized time, the night belonged to stories. Stories whispered beside oil lamps. Stories told to explain why someone never came home. Why footsteps were heard on empty roads. Why laughter echoed where no one stood. In India, folklore did not invent monsters for entertainment. It documented fear. It cataloged dangers that logic could not tame. And the most unsettling part is this: many of these creatures were never meant to be distant myths. They were believed to live just beyond the village boundary, at the edge of the forest, or under the banyan tree everyone avoided after sunset. Some still do. One of the most feared figures in Indian folklore does not roar or attack. She asks a simple question. The Churel appears as a beautiful woman, often dressed in white or red, standing alone on a road at night. Her voice is soft, her manner polite. She asks for directions, help, or company. Only the observant notice the detail that comes too late. Her feet are turned backward. The Churel is said to be born from injustice. A woman mistreated in life, denied dignity in death, returns transformed. She drains vitality rather than blood, leaving men weakened, aged, or dead. The horror here is not violence, it is recognition. The Churel remembers what it was like to be human, and it remembers who wronged her. Indian folklore often ties monsters to moral failure. The terror comes not from randomness, but from consequence. Some creatures are less subtle. The Rakshasas of ancient epics are not simple demons. They are intelligent, articulate, and sometimes even honorable. But they are also shapeshifters, deceivers, and predators. Unlike many mythological villains, Rakshasas do not hide their hunger. They manipulate trust, exploit arrogance, and thrive on human error. In village folklore, Rakshasas are blamed for travelers who vanish, voices that imitate loved ones, and strangers who appear too helpful. Their lesson is brutally practical. Not everything that speaks kindly means well, and not everything that looks human is. Then there is the Brahmarakshasa, a creature born from corruption, not cruelty. It is said to be a learned man, often a priest or scholar, who misused knowledge or power. After death, he returns with his head engulfed in flames or surrounded by unnatural light. The Brahmarakshasa haunts crossroads and trees, reciting scripture, asking questions, testing passers-by. Answer correctly, and you may be spared. Fail, and the encounter turns fatal. Knowledge in these stories is not salvation. It is responsibility. Abuse it, and it devours you. Some entities do not hunt humans. They wait for them. The Vetala lives in cemeteries and cremation grounds, hanging upside down from trees like a bat. It possesses corpses, animating the dead to speak riddles, tell stories, or drive travelers mad. The Vetala is not interested in killing. It prefers confusion. In famous tales, kings are tested by Vetalas through moral paradoxes. Speak when you should remain silent, and your head explodes. Stay silent when you should speak, and you prove unworthy. The Vetala embodies one of India's oldest fears, that wisdom is not knowing the answer, but knowing when to speak. If the Vetala unsettles, the Pisachas disgusts. Pisachas dwell in darkness, feeding on decay, madness, and fear. They whisper intrusive thoughts, influence dreams, and provoke irrational behavior. Ancient texts describe them as misshapen, with bulging eyes and distorted limbs. But folklore suggests something worse. They infect the mind. The Pisachas explains mental illness in a time before psychology, but it does so with compassion. Rituals to ward them off often involve healing, community, and grounding the afflicted person, rather than punishment. In this way, even the most disturbing creatures reveal empathy beneath the fear. Not all monsters live on land. The Makara, part crocodile, part fish, part elephant, guards thresholds, river mouths, temple gates, transitions between worlds. It is not evil, but it is dangerous. Makara myths warn against underestimating nature's power, especially water. Many drowned travelers were explained not as careless, but as claimed. And sometimes humor sneaks in. The Gandharvas are celestial beings known for music and mischief, but stray too far from polite mythology, and they become tricksters who lure travelers with song, lead them in circles, or trap them in endless celebrations that leave years missing from their lives. Indian folklore understands that terror does not always scream. Sometimes it dances. Then there are the beings who are not born, but summoned. The Pret is a restless spirit formed when death rites are improperly performed. Hungry, bloated, and perpetually dissatisfied, it wanders, unable to move on. Unlike ghosts who haunt out of malice, Prets haunt out of neglect. The fear here is deeply social. The Pret exists to remind the living of obligation, to ancestors, to tradition, to closure. One of the most chilling figures appears without warning. The Yakshini can be benevolent or deadly. She inhabits trees, temples, and isolated paths. In some stories, she grants wealth or wisdom. In others, she seduces travelers and drains their life force. The same being can bless or destroy. The difference lies in intention. Indian folklore repeatedly insists that morality is situational, not absolute. Perhaps the most unsettling creatures are the ones who feel closest. The Dakinis and Yoginis are not monsters in the Western sense. They are powerful, liminal figures associated with cremation grounds, tantric rituals, and forbidden knowledge. They are feared not because they are evil, but because they operate outside social order. They represent autonomy, power without permission, and societies often find that terrifying. Across regions, languages, and centuries, a pattern emerges. Indian folklore does not ask you to fear the unknown. It asks you to understand it. Every terrifying creature is a metaphor sharpened by survival. Forests hide predators. Rivers kill without malice. Injustice creates rage. Knowledge without ethics corrodes. Ritual neglect breeds unrest. And yet these stories endure not because they frighten, but because they explain. They tell people how to walk carefully, how to observe closely, how to treat others well, how to respect forces larger than themselves. They also remind us of something deeply unsettling. Monsters are rarely strangers. They are reflections of grief, arrogance, cruelty, neglect, and fear. They walk beside humanity, shaped by it, fed by it, and sometimes created by it. In India's folklore, the terrifying creatures are not waiting for the world to end. They are waiting for someone to forget the rules. And the moment that happens, the story begins again. For more fascinating stories, subscribe to On This Day,